Oh, that's good.
It's a bad one. Look. Stop.
Mommy's live on a podcast. Okay. Hello and welcome to. Oh, could you close the door, sweetie? We're talking about the Trump trial, the jury being out. Thank you, Don. The jury being out for a verdict, and the note that they just sent. So everybody had to file back into the quorum, and the jury has asked to see Pecker's testimony. Pecker, David Pecker, the what was he, the CEO of AMI, the person who entered into a you scratch my back, I'll scratch your back with regards to suppressing stories about Trump that would have been super profitable for the National Enquirer publication, but which AMI chose to sit on, chose to catch and kill in order to curry influence with a potential future president and to maximize his chances of becoming a president in the future. By keeping out of the public ear a story of an adulterous sexual liaison with adult film star Stormy Daniels, aka Stephanie Cliffords, who the liaison occurring 18 years ago. Anyway, we're all waiting on the jury to come back with a verdict, basically to see if they're going to say guilty or have a hung trial. If there's some kind of secretly Trump devotee holdout in the jury who can frustrate the other jurors. But at the moment, this note is sounding like a reasonable, responsible, thorough jury asking to see more about testimony. So what did they say? So I'm reading some reporting from Anna Bauer, who is a lawfare reporter. What's her title? Let's have a look. Lawfare, legal fellow and courts correspondent. So she's got this up-to-date thread. They requested Pecker's testimony related to the decision to not finalize the assignment of McDougal's life rights. And there seems to be a reference to Cohen and Trump's effort to buy McDougal's life rights from AMI. So why did they want to buy it? All right. As for Cohen's request that Pecker sign McDougal's life rights over to him, Pecker agreed to do so. He saw it, he testifies, as a way to recoup the money that AMI had paid out to buy the story on behalf of Donald Trump. But Pecker didn't insist on reimbursement for the entire $150,000 sum AMI paid to McDougal, because McDougal would be writing for AMI magazines under her agreement. Pecker asked Cohen for a $125,000 payment in exchange for her life rights. He considered McDougal's writing services to be worth about $25,000. So she was going to be providing, a column, some type of writing for AMI. All right, they had an agreement in place, but it was never executed. Prior to the execution of the agreement, Pecker testified that he spoke to AMI's general counsel, Cameron Stracher. Based on that conversation, Pecker determined he no longer wanted to be reimbursed for AMI's payment for the McDougal story. In October, Pecker called Cohen and told him, "The deal is off. It is a bad idea, and I want you to rip up the agreement," Pecker said to Cohen. The change of heart caused Cohen to become very, very angry, Pecker says. Cohen was upset and screaming. All right, and the Trump supporters I've seen around on ye old Twitter today have been variously saying there's no crime, there's no victim, also saying, what did they say as well? Blah, blah, rigged, verdicts in. Some of them were trying to console themselves in anticipation of a guilty verdict. So they were saying, oh, it's already, the fix is in. But the other ones were posting part of Cohen's plea agreement, in which he pled guilty in 2018 to lying on behalf of the unindicted co-conspirator number one, which was Trump, who was president in 2018 and couldn't be criminally charged because of a memo written in 1973 with regards to Richard Nixon saying a sitting president can't be charged because it would be a distraction to have a president having to defend himself in court if he was a sitting president. So it's not a law, it's not a part of the Constitution, but it's an Office of Legal Counsel legal memo that is often taken as significant, if not binding, guidance to the Department of Justice today, because they didn't charge Trump while he was in office. And of course, also he had various attorney generals who were in the can for him. My screen seems to have frozen. Now, why is that? Hello again. So we have some people with us. That's exciting. Let's look some more at these notes from that the jury wanted and see if we can suss out some more of what it's about. Pecker's agreement. So they're just trying to hear more about that. And that's fair enough, because the Trump's defense team, led by Todd Blanche, or whatever his face is, were trying to say it's all about Michael Cohen's credibility. And Cohen spent time in jail and he's lied. And a lot of the times he's lied has been in service of Donald Trump's interests, although the dude has lied in his own interest on occasion as well. He was Donald Trump's lawyer. He was a personal attorney for Donald Trump for years and years and years. And he was someone who really put his hand up to do Donald Trump's dirty work, and who periodically made recordings of his boss, as you do when you're working in a mob-style environment and you're worried at any point that any of your colleagues, co-conspirators, might turn on you. So he did try to cover his own butt periodically by making a tape, and he has a taped recording of Donald Trump saying cash, check, and also 150. Meaning $150,000 for Karen McDougal. And there's just a lot more evidence than Michael Cohen's mere words. So there was testimony from David Pecker. There was testimony from Hope Hicks. There wasn't testimony from Trump's former CFO, Alan Weisselberg, because that dude is in Rikers for perjury, as well as for crimes he committed in furtherance of benefiting the Trump organization as well as himself through a scheme to defraud the American taxpayer and the American government via deriving income through benefits that were kept off the books rather than pay income tax. And also the Trump organization had to pay less tax as well. So Alan Weisselberg is in jail, and he has an agreement with the Trump organization that if he doesn't cooperate with law enforcement, he can get a $3 million bonus at some point. It's kind of a non-disclosure agreement type of deal. In any case, they couldn't get Weisselberg out of prison to testify in this particular case. But there's a lot of supporting evidence for the version of events that says Cohen lied in furtherance of Trump's interests, in furtherance of Trump's agenda of getting elected, of withholding information from the public, specifically withholding knowledge of the dalliance, the sexual contact with Stormy Daniels, at a time in just prior to the election in 2016, when someone had leaked the Access Hollywood tape, which had Trump's own voice saying some very predatory things about how he feels that he can get away with anything. If you're famous, you can grab women by the genitals and they'll let you do it, i.e. you can sexually assault someone and they won't complain about it. He didn't even really say they like it. He said they'll let you do it. And some of the things that women he's assaulted have testified to, namely E. Jean Carroll, have been that she didn't go to the police because she had counsel from friends that said he's so famous and wealthy and influential that there is literally no point going to the police because there will be no consequences for him, only negative consequences for you. So in a way, yes, what he said has been borne out by subsequent testimony from women. But there would have been testimony from Stormy Daniels, at least attesting to his willingness to pursue sex even when married, even when his third wife, Melania Trump, had just recently given birth to his most recent son, Barron Trump. So a lot of reasons there to support the narrative that Trump commissioned this crime, commissioned the falsification of business records, which is a crime in furtherance of an additional crime, which was to conceal important information from the voting public in a national election, which is against New York election law. And the jury don't have to agree what the secondary crime was. They just have to agree that, yep, Trump commissioned the falsification of business records in furtherance of any crime. There's a bunch of different crimes you can say it was in furtherance of: tax fraud, election campaign law fraud, campaign law violation, because it wasn't. There were also in-kind donations that broke election donation law between AMI buying these stories of Karen McDougal and Michael Cohen paying for Stormy Daniels' silence. That's donations that have to be declared. And of course, it was a temporary donation in that Cohen intended to be paid back by Donald Trump. But to start with, it was something that Cohen took out a second mortgage on his own home without the knowledge of his wife in order to help Trump out in this matter. So let's see if there's any updates on what the jury have been asking about. So that was 26 minutes ago that there was a tweet of Justice Merchan taking the bench. We've received a note, blah, blah, blah. We've read that. Life rights. Karen McDougal, yes. I want to look at little Trump supporters saying that has nothing to do with the alleged crimes. Well, it does. It does, because the crimes are this conspiracy that Trump, Cohen, Pecker all entered into to purchase the silence of women that Trump had slept with in order to hide his elements of his character, his predatory behavior towards women, his extramarital affairs, his lack of loyalty to a third wife. I mean, the fact that it's a third wife and his previous wives didn't die or anything or have any misadventure, he divorced them because he saw a different shiny object. He just treats women as objects to be acquired and display. I'm veering into speculation there. That is my version of events backed up by Trump's third marriage and the plausible accounts from multiple women who he either attacked or had consensual sexual activities with. The McDougal affair was purportedly of a year's duration and was consensual. She had an interview and she said she felt very sorry for what she did to Melania Trump in terms of facilitating Trump's cheating on her. Eric Trump, I put in the tagline of this post because Eric Trump made a speech outside the court in which he said, we'll win this case, we're white. And I'm not on the bandwagon with people who are saying Eric Trump made a racist pronouncement. He clearly lisped. When they say racist thing, there's always some acknowledgement of it. There's always some, we know we're not allowed to say this and they don't want us to say this, but da-da-da-da-da. They know when they're releasing energy by splitting the atom in terms of releasing energy by splitting social norms and societal expectations that you not be openly, nakedly, publicly racist. So there was no wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I know I'm pissing off the libs here. Let's lean into doing that. It was a mispronunciation of we're right, which I disagree with. He's not right. The evidence is very strongly against his father, but, they've got to keep going out there and feeding their followers, some of whom were videoed crying outside the courtroom and praying to Jesus. And I think some of those people, obviously very strongly religious in a way that's become entangled with their sentiments supporting Donald Trump. Let's watch that. Let's not just listen to me yammer on. Let's go to my bookmarked things because we can listen to Trump supporters crying for Donald Trump. I mean, I feel very strongly that Joe Biden should receive better coverage in the press of his accomplishments and his economic successes and his policy successes. But I don't think I would be sobbing in this way outside a court in which Biden was on trial, because I'm not in a cult. That's I think a critical difference.
Jesus and Lord.
God. Thank you.
Strong emotion. God bless Trump.
Bible, only Bible.
It's kind of freezing a bit. But my point is that we do need to pay attention to religious people and what they're saying in relation to their support for Trump, the subset of religious people who support Trump, because these are also people who likely want there to be an erosion in the separation between church and state. They want churches, specifically Christian churches, to have control over the government, for there to be Bibles in schools, for Christianity to be taught as a national religion, for it to be more difficult for women to get access to contraceptive measures, for women to be coerced into giving birth if they've fallen pregnant. So coerced birth, forced pregnancy, reduced access to contraception, reduced access to medical care, stabilizing medical care for women undergoing miscarriages, because all women undergoing miscarriages have become murder suspects in a nation where it's legally acceptable to charge people with crimes for a baby that doesn't, or for a fetus that doesn't make it to outside of the birth canal. So baby didn't make that difficult journey. It's murder, and you're a suspect if you are the mother. You are the key suspect because the location of the murder, the location of the crime is your body, is your uterus. And a lot of doctors don't appreciate being conscripted into that kind of nightmare scenario of viewing medical patients as suspects in a murder crime when there hasn't been a murder, and hospital departments close down when a sufficient proportion of the staff have left. So that's just elements that add to the maternal death rate, to the pain and suffering of women in Republican-led states where a variety of laws have been passed that all complicate the legality around treating women undergoing medical complications relating to pregnancy, whether they be from miscarriages or abortions. Not only can you not legally obtain an abortion in approximately 26 states, there's some impossible legal hoops to jump through in some of those states to try and prove that you were raped before your pregnancy passes the cutoff period for no longer allowed an abortion under any circumstances. So you can't terminate a pregnancy readily, and you can't get access. I mean, Louisiana just made mifepristol a controlled substance in that state because, again, they're just trying to apply this morality of suspected murder to women who need mifepristol to stop uterine bleeding, hemorrhaging, etc., in relation to a number of different conditions, an aborted pregnancy, but also an incomplete miscarriage. And incomplete miscarriages are quite common. Pregnancy can be a life-threatening circumstance for many women, particularly if modern medicine is no longer available to them because of the moral. I've made this lady up on the screen for such a long time. Because of this false piety, moral posturing of some religious people, but even some atheist people of the type who insist that you have to raise the birth rate in order to protect a country. And they say the birth rate's very important, but what they are fueled by is an opposition to immigration. Whether they'll be honest about why they're opposed to immigration, I hope a few people have read that expose in The Guardian recently, an interview with a couple who are the head of a movement to raise the birth rate. They themselves are trying to have as many children as they can, and they don't seem very emotionally involved in their children's lives. And the man, head of the family, smacked his, I mean, he's an atheist, so he's not doing this from a religious conviction of subservience, but it shows how many people lean into a hierarchical attachment to the subservience of women in a restaurant, and called it being bopped. And said, you can't, I love you, but you can't act like that in a restaurant or you're going to get bopped, i.e. again. And yeah. What are the names of those two people? The Collinses, I think, is their name. Anyway, they're like, yep. Modern industrialized countries where women have rights have lower birth rates. So they're trying to do their part in raising the birth rate, encouraging people to have children. They know it's not just financial incentives, because some countries such as South Korea that have given significant financial incentives to procreate haven't seen a commensurate rise in birth rates. Same with Hungary. I think Hungary's been trying to pay people to have more babies. And if the other conditions aren't amenable to it, then people don't want to have babies. And in Hungary, I know there's a significant problem with democracy there at the moment. There's Viktor Orban leading the country, ignoring mass protests against his rule style, which is pretty despotic. And a lot of the Project 2025 that the Trump supporters have devised, the Heritage Foundation, the Federalist Society, those type of organizations have written a blueprint for a second Trump term in office. Only even less than 1 in 4 Americans have heard of it. It's a blueprint for getting rid of civil servants in office who don't have loyalty to Trump over the Constitution. So if you feel like you need to obey the law more than you do obey Trump, then you're not going to be one of the people that get to keep their job. There's going to be an army of enthusiastic conservative Trump supporters hired who are willing to prioritize Trump's wishes and Trump's pronouncements as higher than established law or established precedent and things like that. So not only are they getting rid of a lot of the people who keep the government going in between different administrations, they're also going to commence programs of mass deportation of immigrants in this country, creating havoc with America's agricultural sector, because produce won't be harvested in a timely fashion, because America has a clogged up system for requesting refugee status through the immigration court system, but it certainly still has, in spite of that, a very high reliance on immigrant agricultural workers, to say nothing of the immorality of just mass uprooting and deporting people in order to further the political fortunes of people who are posturing as strongmen, who pretend that the impact of immigration to the United States is a net negative, when actually it's a significant net positive. Not only does it help the agricultural sector keep its wheels on and working and operational, it also enhances the economy. It minimizes the kind of economic contractions that follow on from labor bottlenecks, when you get industries that suddenly require labor and there's not enough local people or native-born Americans to fill those needs. Migration rises to meet the call and helps the economy continue to burgeon then, where it would have otherwise contracted as labor bottlenecks arose. We've still got some people listening. Let's have a little skip to the next. The screen froze. I shall open this up on my own phone so that I can see. All right. All right, so we saw the Trump supporters crying. We saw Eric Trump say, "We will win because we are white." Yeah. Oh, and Senator Marco Rubio of Florida, Republican senator. Oops. Oh, I forgot to bring my water over. Oh, well. What did Marco Rubio say? He said that the judge told the jury they didn't have to unanimously agree on which crime was committed as long as they all at least pick one. Sham trial, he calls it. So Asher Rangappa, who is a former FBI special agent and a lawyer and a lecturer at Yale, I believe, and a legal contributor to ABC, she says, Marco, maybe this picture will help. Trump is charged with falsifying business records, the top part of this drawing. The jury must be unanimous to convict him of that crime. One of the elements the government has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt is that he falsified those records to commit or conceal another crime, the bottom part of the drawing. So the jury does not have to be unanimous on which underlying crime he was intending to conceal, just that he had the intent. And she adds sarcastically, I know it's a lot to follow, but I think you can do it. Let's make this document bigger and let's put it up here like this so people can see. So the Trump Organization invoices recording, falsifying business records in the first degree, New York Penal Law 175.10. And so the little hearts are where it's got a felony bump up from the misdemeanor of falsifying business records. So Cohen, for the Trump Organization, created sham invoices so he could be reimbursed for paying checks. For paying Stormy Daniels money, and intended to conceal an unclosed in-kind campaign contribution, which is a violation of federal campaign finance laws 52 USC 30118 and 30116. And then the other uncharged underlying proposed crime is a conspiracy to promote Trump's election using unlawful means, which is New York Election Law 17.152. All right, so both federal campaign finance laws and New York election laws. This is a very helpful diagram. I'm so grateful she did it. So here we go. The agreement AMI, which was headed at the time by Pecker, $150K to Karen McDougal. Oh, and to Trump, the agreement of be my eyes and ears, I will reimburse you was the implied position of Trump. And then they did a false entry, which is unlawful in the AMI business ledger with regards to the various catch and kill proposals, $30K to the doorman who had an allegedly unsubstantiated story of Trump fathering a child, but $150K to Karen McDougal for the year-long affair, and then $130 for Stormy Daniels, which AMI decided not to. They didn't want a part of that, so Michael Cohen had to be the one coughing up the $130K. There we go. What a great document. Thank you, Asher Rangappa. Then you can see the initial crime, the felony of falsifying business records in the first degree in violation of New York Penal Law 175, and then the underlying crime. So they don't have to all be in consensus about the underlying crime, just that there was an intent to conceal or commit a secondary crime. They just don't have to be in agreement on the secondary crime. They do have to be unanimous that he intended to commit the first crime of falsifying business records in the first degree, that Trump was a key part of that conspiracy. All right. Oh my goodness, they've made Trump his innocent friend. How adorable. And let's see. Blah, blah, blah. And yep, on Fox News, Doug Collins, who's, I think, a former Republican congressman. Or is he a current Republican congressman? Don't care. But he says, blah, blah. Number one, we shouldn't have been here to start with. It's a prosecution in search of a crime. It's not that Donald Trump didn't do anything. Well, he did. He was part of a conspiracy to deceive the American public via falsifying business records in furtherance of violating New York campaign finance law. And what was the other one? Campaign finance law, and that was federal campaign finance law, and then New York law, the catch and kill agreement with AMI to conceal important information from voters in the 2016 election. Oh, wow. This person's making a great point that MAGA says Trump is innocent, blah, blah, blah. He was never convicted of any crimes. And someone says he was fined $1.4 million for hiring undocumented workers. Oh, look, he's got a little list of all his various convictions. I guess some of these are civil trials. He had to pay, was that the $750,000 an antitrust lawsuit? Which was that one? I don't even remember. In 1990, $750,000 to be paid in defamation for accurately predicting Taj Mahal failure. $2,000 in 1991 for removing black workers from the casino floor. 1991, $30,000 fine for circumventing state regulations. 1998, $1.4 million for hiring undocumented workers. 1998, also $447,000 for money laundering violations. That's a lot. Wow, $799,000 in 2015 for defaming a Trump University student, probably a Trump University student who was suing him for the fact that the Trump University was a scam. $10 million in money laundering violations in 2015. $1.3 million to the FEC for disclosure errors in 2016. $25 million. I remember this one, 2017, he settled with the Trump University fraud. $2 million in 2019 for the Trump Foundation fraud. $122 million of Trump campaign refunds to donors who were robbed by having tiny boxes with fine print that said you have to continue giving whatever sum of money you thought was a one-off, and they just continue to take money out of people's accounts. This is a lot. What? 2022, $1.6 million guilty of 17 counts of criminal tax fraud. I remember the $5 million to E. Jean Carroll for sexual assault in 2023, and then $83.3 million to E. Jean Carroll for defaming her in 2024. Oh, and he also had to pay $392,000 in court sanctions for a bogus lawsuit against the New York Times, and also in 2023. $453 million. Oh, yes, for business fraud. Wow, it's really hard to keep up with all of these civil court findings where he's been found liable of these various civil law violations. My goodness. The media really should do a lot more to emphasize these things. I'm going to retweet that graphic. Wow. So that if you visit my account, DavCat43, you'll see it. It'll be the top one. I've literally just retweeted it now. And I'm going to make it bigger again for a second. There we go. That's a lot. That's a lot, and it should really be emphasized. Biden hasn't been convicted of anything. My goodness. And there's been a lot of effort to try and fabricate evidence. Donald Trump withheld $300 million worth of military aid that Congress had already apportioned to be sent to Ukraine in 2019 or 18. He was impeached for withholding military aid to Ukraine in furtherance of a scheme to have President Volodymyr Zelensky say or fabricate an investigation into Joe Biden to falsely say, oh, yes, we're opening an investigation, without actual evidence of any wrongdoing, to just try and muddy the waters to indicate that Biden was guilty of impropriety in some way with regards to Ukraine and Burisma. And of course, Joe Biden was the vice president when international pressure was brought to bear on Ukraine, the government at the time, to fire the lead prosecutor, Viktor Shokin, who was dragging his feet in prosecuting some corrupt business operations in Ukraine. And Joe Biden was successful in spearheading that effort, but it wasn't for personal enrichment. It was something that the International Monetary Fund, the World Trade Organization, a multitude, the European Union, a multitude of international organizations were insisting that step be taken in order to restore confidence in Ukraine's ability to have businesses exist in Ukraine without being overly corrupt. And a lot of that corruption was, I would say, Russian oligarch influenced. Oh, look, somebody makes a point that I don't hear the right screaming Trump is innocent, only that it's unfair to prosecute him. They know he's guilty. They do not care and will lie to save his ass. I mean, yes, their risk, although they will also say he's innocent, but what a cult, a fascistic type of cult, works by convincing people that they're in imminent danger from some type of invading force, and therefore you have to have the fascist cult leader, strong man in power. He's the only person brave enough to identify this fabricated problem, this disproportionate, fear-mongered, blown out of the water, Fox News fabricated problem, and therefore they will support him at any cost, regardless of any evidence of criminality, etc. They won't believe that he's a traitor to the United States, that he deliberately kept classified documents, state secrets, top secret documents, to the detriment of the interests of the United States, and kept them in insecure locations. They won't believe any of that because it would go against their own ego. They have put their emotional lot in with Donald Trump. They've subsumed their own identity to an extent in Trump's identity. Their own innocence is Trump's innocence. Their goals are Trump's goals, and his ability to evade consequences is something they want for themselves. The ability to evade consequences, to be racist, to call out risks that they think are being ignored because of polite societal standards, to not be racist, or modern developments that decry racism as a bad thing, rather than openly bake in racism into the laws, the religious pronouncements, etc. All right, I think I'm going to go just because I think this is all frozen and I don't even know if I'm getting through to anyone. Let's see. Oh, it looks like it's I'm watching myself on my own phone now. It says that there's 244 people watching. Oh, it looks like it's I'm watching myself on my own phone now. There's a little delay. It says that there's 24 people watching. Oh, looks like it's okay, well then I'll keep talking, even though my screen is a bit frozen. I can't do anything. I can still talk. If you can still hear me, I can still talk. We can still go through some Trump issues and also adjacent Trump issues, namely one that the Supreme Court was invited to address the issue of whether or not. What is that? The Supreme Court was invited to address the issue of whether or not. What is that? Well, you can still see me. My entire screen is black. Okay, I'm going to keep talking because it's about. I'm going to talk about Justice Alito and how he is blaming his wife. So there's been two instances of flag displaying at Alito's house. One, an upside down United States flag displayed on January the 17th at Justice Alito's home. Actually, Samuel Alito. Anyway, Justice Alito, upside down flag. He said it was my wife who did it because of a dispute with a neighbor. And the neighbor had chased his wife down, according to him, and called her the vilest name you can call a woman, namely the C word. And the New York Times delved into the story further, and the people who had an offensive sign outside their home Martha Ann Alito yelled at them and called them fascists, bleeping fascists, because some expletive that they didn't specify, and that the neighbors responded. Emily Baden, B-A-D, and called her the C word, called her the vilest term you can say to a woman. And in the neighbors telling, they had also at one stage driven past the house and had Martha Ann approach their car and spit in their direction after Biden's inauguration. But the point is, after the spitting and the yelling, the neighbors called the police on February the 15th, and that was verified by police records. They called the police, and the police were like, well, we weren't there. It sounds like the confrontation is settled now. So next time, if you're in the middle of the confrontation, call us so we can arrive while it's happening. Let's see. I'm sorry to have a Trump meme up there. I cannot fix it. My computer screen is still a bit frozen. Oh, maybe it's a bit unfrozen now. That'd be exciting. I'm keen to do that. I think I just overloaded my computer a little bit today. So we're still all waiting for a verdict from the jury. They seem like they're being diligent and conscientious of the agreements that Pecker entered into with women that whose stories Trump was trying to suppress at that critical moment in the months and weeks just leading up to the 2016 federal election. So everybody hopefully remembers that it was a big deal at the time. There were prominent Republicans, who felt compelled to withdraw their support for Trump because of the bombshell effect of hearing his own words, his own voice confess to feeling like a magnet attracted to beautiful women, and he just kisses them. He can't help it. And when you're famous, they let you do it. So confessing to a pattern of predation and assault and lack of morals, lack of faithfulness and loyalty within a marriage, and also a sense of entitlement that he can and will get away with assaulting women because of his fame. So a conviction there that he could do that and could continue to do that. So all things which would have significantly impacted the electorate's perception of his moral character and his suitability for high office. So I've put that diagram up there. I don't have many people commenting today, which is okay, but that's nice of them to stop in. Now there's will we get away with listening to this man? Probably not. This was a leading Virginia Senate candidate called Hung Kao, and he is quoted as saying, no one in the United States is like, oh my gosh, I will die if I don't have health care. There are a lot of people who die in the United States from not having health care. I believe a lot of the Republican-governed states that have refused federal assistance to expand Medicaid have seen people die as a consequence when they could have accessed Medicaid if their Republican-led state government had accepted Medicaid expansion funds. But instead they suffer. When you have untreated cancer, when you have untreated needs to have a triple bypass, quadruple bypass, etc. There are many, many health conditions which can cause you to die if you don't have healthcare coverage and you experience a medical emergency or a disease progression. This is a very important post that I just wanted to share with people. That says, if only there was a profession whose job it was to inform the public about the ideas espoused by the parties and not think it is the job of said parties to drive narratives instead. Because there's just a lot of people who complain that Democrats haven't done enough to put their message out there, when in fact communicate with the public. The media is failing to attend press conferences. They don't cover Biden's speeches sufficiently, and they help Republican narratives dominate the media landscape so that people are often unaware of positive economic indicators. They're aware that inflation has been a problem and that housing prices have been problematic, but they don't know anything about the relative economic strength of the United States on a global stage, how the United States is leading the world in economic growth at the moment, and that immigration continues to be something that happens because of the draw card of US economic growth. So here we go. Despite the Biden campaign ramping up its focus on Heritage's Project 2025 this year, fewer than 1 in 4 Americans say they've heard about it, according to new polling shared with Semaphore this morning. So let's see. Overall, 8% have heard a lot about it, 16% have heard some, and 76% have heard a little or nothing about it. They don't know jack about Project 2025. They took it offline after initially posting it, saying that it was attracting negative attention, but there are preserved copies of it online. You can go and look for yourself what they propose to do. And if you just need something that Republicans are doing now, you can look at how schools are closing in Florida because of the success of the Republican governor, Ron DeSantis, in instituting a voucher system, which claims to be helpful for parents and students. But what it does is pull money out of public schools. It creates an environment of disparaging public schools and then forcing them to fail and close, because wealthy parents now get in their hand vouchers to help defray the cost of private schools. And when public schools close, less wealthy parents have no options for where to send their children to. If they don't have a huge budget for transport to send their child to some faraway school or to boarding school, then their child has had their educational opportunities significantly impacted by the closure of public schools as a direct consequence of this push for vouchers and this pretense that school vouchers enhance the options of parents with school students in their families. But yes, Project 2025 has more of the same, but just more elimination of options to oppose Trump and to, a lot of his former co-workers, people he appointed, have said he's a danger to the United States and the world, and that they had to oppose a lot of his wishes whilst he was in office. Last time because of their depravity. Mark Milley has spoken to various journalists to say that Trump wanted to instigate a war with Iran. He wanted to launch military attacks on Iran after losing the 2020 election to try and preserve his claim to remain in office because of the instability of being at war. He wanted to launch missile attacks against Iran without specific provocations, just something he wanted to do. And then Trump's tried to pretend that that was General Milley's idea. He waved around classified documents at his Mar-a-Lago place to various journalists. He said, they're classified, so I can't really let you see them. He showed awareness of knowing that he shouldn't have classified documents, and he certainly shouldn't be waving them around to people who lacked clearance to view such documents. And that trial of that type of behavior, that retaining and concealing those documents, hiding them from his own lawyers, lying to the National Archives to say, no, he'd returned everything, that very purposeful, very willful keeping of America's secret information for himself at his private property, at his club, that behavior was to go on trial, but someone Trump appointed in the last few weeks of his time in office, Judge Eileen Cannon, has been at the helm of that trial, has taken every opportunity to reprimand the prosecution and to bend over backwards to cater to Trump's wishes, including trying to make the identities of witnesses public. She's an awful, terrible person, because the American public deserves to see that trial and to see and hear about the details and the evidence of Trump's willful misbehavior. Although the American public could try and take an interest in it for themselves, it'd be great if comedians covered that material more. I said we. I'm an aspiring comedian because I see the need to make this type of material funny and palatable, in order to make it palatable for an electorate that is tired after they had 4 years of Trump and a pandemic that he worsened, and just the aftermath of all of that drama and conflict. Because when one aspiring fascist willfully seeks to separate people from a grasp on reality, to willfully break their relationship with reality, to say all media is lying to you except for me and my preferred sources, preferred media sources, so you can't believe anything that's told to you, not about climate change, not about the pandemic, not about my crimes. Only take truth from me and from, wink, wink, nod, nod, cue. That creates interfamilial conflict. It creates frustration and exhaustion. And it shouldn't be a surprise that some people prefer not to engage with difficult news stories where there are highly different opinions on it. Some opinions that are more anchored to reality and some opinions that are highly detached from reality. That's how fascism works. It wears you out. It fires some people up. It makes some people cult members with an emphasis on violence as a response to opposition. So the Trump supporters who were so wound up by their diet of lies and stochastic terrorism fed to them by Trump and his supporters, that they sought to go down to the Capitol and delay the certification of Joe Biden's election win in order to help Trump keep office, an office that he had just lost by virtue of a majority of voters in a majority of states choosing Joe Biden over him. The rioters at the Capitol, the insurrectionists, were helping Trump further a plan in which Samuel Alito would receive a request from Trump lawyer Sidney Powell. You want me to come play? I will come play, darling. I'll say goodbye. And the 12th, you just want to be on it? And the 12th Amendment would be activated, a provision of which that would say 270 electoral college votes not certified for any one candidate, then throw the decision of who will be president to the House of Representatives, specifically one delegate from each state. And in 2020, Republicans would have controlled 26 delegates, the Democrats 24. And that was one proposed mechanism within the Trump circles for him to illegitimately retain the position of the presidency in the teeth of the actual election result, Joe Biden's election win, President Joe Biden's election win. And that's very important to know and remember that, because all of their activities are still in furtherance of that plot to degrade American democracy and have their crook, con artist, despot, fascist stay in office, regardless of the long-standing tradition of American democracy. Thank you and goodbye. You want to say goodbye? Okay.
Bye.
Okay.